review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He's the author of the book Five Angles, the practical fundamentals of the world of Filipino martial arts of Eskrima, Armis, and Kali. No other than Mr. Frank Delo. Welcome to Book 101, Mr. Frank, and can you please introduce more about yourself?
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. Um, I'm based in the Chicago suburbs. My parents came here in the 70s from the Philippines, and I'm the first generation from our family born here. Um, I grew up training our Filipino martial arts system without knowing it was a formal system. My dad taught it to me as just playtime with sticks. We were just play sword fighting in my mind, and then it wasn't until I was an adult I found out he had been training me in a formal martial arts system. So um, I felt it was important to um, write down some record of the curriculum and my experience, and share that as part of our family legacy and our cultural legacy.
A legacy indeed, Mr. Frank Delo Jr. Thank you so much for sharing your book to the world. And what fundamental gap or common misunderstanding in how Eskrima, Arnis, Kali, or Eskrima is often thought or perceived led you to focus specifically on the five angles as the foundation of your book?
Yeah, so um, my my family system is based on these five angles or cinco terros. That's the name in the Philippines. Um, it's considered one style or one subset of the rest of Filipino martial arts, but I discovered while playing with other teachers and other systems that it really contains a lot of the most useful basics that go across all the systems, and then that's how I teach it now in the book and in my martial arts school here in the area. I teach it as my family system, but also as a gateway. Like I say in the book, it's the gateway to any of the other information, any of the other styles and systems. We share a lot of the most important principles, and I don't want to take away from the other styles. I want to promote the whole body of Filipino martial arts together using my style as kind of the initial introduction.
Very well said, Mr. Frank. Beautifully articulated. You emphasize practical fundamentals. How do you define this in the context of FMA? And how does focusing on the five angles embody these particular or partiality better than the other starting points?
Well, so some of this goes to my experience in classroom teaching. So I have a bachelor's in education, and I've spent many years in the local school systems. So in my experience in education, um, it it showed how important it is to introduce a new subject in a very basic way to gradually introduce something. It's what I've seen from a lot of martial arts, not just Filipino martial arts, but a lot of martial arts in general, is we see the cool stuff on TV and movies, and we want to jump in right away. But if you really want to master these things, you have to you have to step back and be ready to start with very, very simple uh, ideas, very simple movements. That's
Well,
yeah, that's what our style starts in, and tends to be how we excel. We don't have a lot of complicated curriculum, but what we do is spend a lot of time digging deeper into simple basics so that really complex stuff can emerge over time.
indeed, simple steps. How does understanding and mastering the five angles go beyond just learning striking patterns?
Yeah, so uh, learning the striking patterns is certainly one level of learning. You know, every skill we learn requires some of that, memorization, but it's important. And the way we teach in my school is we encourage fluid, free thought. So we start with the simple memorized patterns, and then the way I teach it, I start throwing, throwing a monkey wrench in, starting adding some pressure, or we treat it like a game where, okay, now you have this new rule, or you're not allowed to do this. We change the parameters to help people think, uh, safely think while they move. Um, so patterns are important, but they're not everything. And this is what helps me lead, the value back to other systems, is seeing the approach to learning beyond memorizing the patterns. So it's the patterns, but it's also play, it's also thought. Like anything else, we want to really understand it instead of just repeat it.
Patterns are very important, people. Even the universe had pattern. Are there any common myths or misconceptions about FMA fundamentals that you are focused on the five angles directly address or debunks?
Um, I think the main thing I'm trying to debunk is that it has to be complicated, right? Um, Complexity is great when somebody's ready for it or capable of it. Like that's what makes watching the great masters so impressive, because they're able to perform at a high degree of skill and complexity. But there's the idea that all levels of practice have to be that way, and I don't agree with that. I've had even young kids starting with the basic fundamentals of our system, and they're able to play, have fun, enjoy themselves, but they also have built skill that's useful enough for keeping them safe as well. So that's my big mission with sharing this material. That I want to make it accessible. I want to be that gateway, that open doorway. I don't want people to think it's too difficult or too secret. It has something valuable for everybody, and I want to make it as accessible as I can with what I have.
For everybody, indeed. How does the book structure the learning journey from the absolute basics of the five angles towards more complex applications, flows, drills, or sparing?
Right. Well, like I said earlier, we start showing these basic repeated patterns, right? The swinging the stick through the five angles. You know, when you look inside the book, you'll see me and my late father um, performing the movements, you know, through pictures and explanations. So there's that layer. But as you read through the book, uh, you'll you'll begin to see my ideas and suggestions for how to explore the material, how to practice different variables, how to adjust for more than one weapon or no weapons. Um, and then later on in the book, I have different observations and suggestions about um, information surrounding the art, but not directly teaching it. So things like general health, some cultural background from my Filipino American experience, you know, those kinds of things that I think are important to understand the art, but not directly related to teaching you the movements. So a larger view with more context. So yeah, we start small, draw out conclusions, and then start to look bigger. That's generally the pattern you'll see in the book.
Mr. Frank, as a teacher, author, musician, and martial art artist, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
Yeah, well, short-term goals. Um, we actually recently moved locations for my school into a new nice new space in Westmont, Illinois. Again, in the Chicago suburbs. I would like to see that new location be full of new students, happy to train, new students at all ages. Um, you know, of course, I it's a business. I can't say I don't want to make money. That's part of it. But you know, beyond my bank balance, um, I want to see a healthy audience, grow a healthy audience for Filipino martial arts in my area, in you know the greater Chicagoland area and beyond. Uh, Longer term, I do plan to write more books. You know, I have several in the works. I just need more time and energy to keep writing, but that's part of the plan.
Looking forward for the books, Mr. Frank, and please do come over and let's talk about it on Book 101 review. And good luck to your goals and hoping for more and more success. As a teacher, author, musician, and martial artist, what is your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be like you?
Right. Well, I would say uh, be yourself first. Right. I would be happy to be a positive example for people, but um, I would try to avoid being exactly like somebody. Right. The the value you bring to your audience is unique to you. So um, be figure yourself out, be honest with yourself and the value you can provide your audience. Um, and then for people you might look up to, again, I would be privileged to be one of those people, but any examples you look up to, you know, you can pick and choose some things that fit for you, but it has to be you. You know, you can't like for example, you know, along with being in education, I also played professionally in symphony orchestras. And when I went to school for music, everyone wanted to be like, you know, a certain star musician. They wanted to emulate their favorite musician for their instrument, you know. But as much as we loved our idols, you can't ever be. exactly like your idol. You know, your idol is successful because they were themselves. We don't get the most success just from being a copy of somebody else. So, we take our examples from other people and then be true to yourself. That's I think that's my most important advice for that.
Thank you, Mr. Frank, for your advice. And before we continue our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please listen to one of my audiobooks, people, on audiobooks, because my book 101 review, volume 1, highly recommended, is on Audible. Book 101 review, volume 3, suggestions, and of course, book 101 review, volume 2, selected. These are my first season of book 101 review, and my climate change book, Earth Fever, the Unraveling Climate and Our Race to Restore Balance. Thread of Existence, Weaving the Tapestry of Life, one of my self-help book. Life is too short, a journey of discovery, of fulfillment and joy. And Stand Tall, Stand Together, Breaking the Chains of Bullying. Please listen to them on Audible because one of the bestsellers. Mr. Frank, how does internalizing the five angles fundamentally change or improve a practitioner's approach to live, sparring, or pressure testing?
Yeah. So there's a lot of fun examples for that. My own students, both kids and adults, have spent time competing in stick competitions over the years. Um, I have to say, so far in my experience, regardless of which school or style um, competitors come from, what tends to come out under the stress of competition is the most simple, basic movement. Um, at least until you get to really high levels of training or high levels of competition. But the average competitor that I've ever seen, um, it's it's always one of the simple strikes, and those are things I can categorize down to one of the five angles in my own system. You know, um, the and you anyone interested can look at this across different types of training. I've been in and around the private security world, and I've done some work, some armed security work as well. And this is the kinds of things you learn even with firearms training. Is there's not there's not complex, fancy trick shot type stuff. It's all when somebody's shooting back at you, it's always the most foundational techniques you use to keep yourself safe and to do your job. So, for stick fighting, it's no different. Um, if you're lucky and you have a higher level competitor, maybe you can perform some more advanced strategic choices, but it's always the most simple things that are uh, trained for a long time, that ingrained in your body and in your mind, that come out first under stress.
Mr. Frank, why are there specific practical fundamentals rooted in the five angles more relevant or important to today's martial arts or self defense practitioner than ever?
Um, well, there's we live in a unique time where there's a lot of access to a lot of information, and not not all of that information comes from reputable sources or from sources that are vetted. Um, and it's for a newcomer, it's kind of hard to choose. You have to make your own choices through a sea of information. Um, I consider it an important part of my mission to share, uh, clearly share my portion of material to an audience who wants to find their way through. Um, because I think more than ever, positions of expertise or authority need to be established and carefully considered. Because, again, we live in an age of just abundance of information, and somewhere along the line, we have to have material and people to help filter it out for people honestly seeking expertise, seeking mastery.
Mr. Frank, if a reader could only grasp one fundamental insight about your book, what would you hope that aha moment to be?
Um, I think, well, it it's hard to narrow down to one. If I can cheat, I'll say two. Um, the the idea of simplicity and play. Simple because complex tends to go away under stress, and then the idea of play is so important to how we learn those things, how they become ingrained in your mind and body. Um, that I think a lot of other self-defense or martial arts approaches look too much at the life and death part, and that's important, right? It has to be useful for self-defense, but learning a skill is different from using it practically. So the that idea of play just helps us learn those things better. Um, and then once it's ingrained in you, then it can come out under more stress. But I'd say, yeah, it's hard to narrow down to one, but if I could be allowed two, it would be simplicity and play.
Very well said, Mr. Frank. Very well said. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and of course my book 101 review in fifth season too, comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in its fifth season as well. Geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast Law 101 and mental health 101. Love Letters in third season, a movie 101 review in fourth season as well. My music 101, science 101, and sex 101 in fourth season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. Mr. Frank, what lasting impact do you hope Five Angles will have on how people learn, teach, and understand the fundamental building blocks of Eskrima, Armis, and Kali?
Yeah, well, I hope long term that my book is an example to people of uh, how to take some of the pressure off and enjoy their learning, their training a little bit more, um, and still appreciate what it is, where it's from, what it's capable of. I don't want it. I don't want to be another author who makes an exciting subject incredibly boring. I've met my share of those types of teachers over the years. You know, I want I want my book to help encourage people to really love and appreciate all of Filipino martial arts. Through the lens of my family system, but um, in general, take some of the pressure off. Take some of the life and death uh, aspect of it and tone it down again, still useful for those things when as needed. But I just want to appreciate, enjoy, and understand something that's worth understanding, like the Filipino martial arts.
Mr. Frank Delo, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. And hoping for more and more and more empowering books like this to come. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your book?
Yes. So again, thank you for having me. Five Angles is available on Amazon and anywhere books are sold by request. And if you're curious about training in person, you can join us at my martial arts school, Amalgam Martial Academy, out in Westmont, Illinois. And if you want me to visit wherever you are, drop me a line. I'd be happy to figure it out and come help you where you are as well.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Frank Delo Jr. because if you support him, more and more and more empowering books to come, more and more empowering martial artists to come. So, Mr. Frank, thank you so much for your time.
Yep. Thank you.
More to come, people. See you soon.